Charmian Ross is an actress in London, and she is in a theatre gang, a theatre group, and she's loud and boisterous and argumentative and colourful and creative and desperate to have an interesting life. And then she bumps into a very tall, golden Becker. Charlie meets Becker when she's on stage. We actually meet Charlie when she's on stage. She's in her element, and she's Joan in Joan of Arc, and there's lots of bad play production flames going on around her, and she notices a man in the audience who is applauding her probably a little bit too eagerly. And then she goes on holiday, and when she gets on holiday, she recognizes a jacket, and she recognizes a watch, and she recognizes the man, and she starts thinking that she's going a bit crazy because she's seeing the man that she then saw that was in the theatre. It turns out it's Alexander Skarsgård just following me around. Ideal. And then we meet Becker, and he gives her a job opportunity, which changes everything. So I remember probably about this time last year, summer last year, news came out that Little Drummer Girl was being made, and it was kind of the first shout from the Ink Factory since The Night Manager that they were making something else. And everyone in town was talking about it, and everyone was going up for it, and everyone knew that this was going to be a really big production. And I didn't think that, obviously, I was going to be a part of it. It was massive news. And so I was kind of bumbling along with the conversations, but always kind of knowing that it's mega. It's like Tom Hiddleston, Elizabeth Debicki mega. And then Director Park got on board, and then suddenly I had the role of Charlie. So it was all very quick and totally shocking, and even when I was filming, I was completely amazed that I was part of it. Director Park is a visionary. He's an emperor of his own kind of talent. And the thought of him directing 6 one-hour episodes of a series was unbelievable. The amount of effort and work that goes into just one of his films, and now he's making 6 of them in a row, was unbelievable. And to watch that as well. The guy is very calm and very calculated. Everything is planned to like the tiniest of details. So, for example, if I was doing this scene with you right now, and if my hand wasn't right, he'd stop it and be like, yeah, but in the other take, your hand was like this, and I liked it like that. You're like, okay. And that's how specific he is. Tiny things that you wouldn't even notice, he does, and he's thought about it. It was hard at times, obviously, because when someone's got a vision in their head and that's the way it's going to be, we don't stop until we get it, which is great, and it was lovely to watch. But yeah, the guy doesn't stop until he gets exactly what he's imagined, and that's pretty powerful. One of the magical relationships in this series is that I think a lot of them presume that Charlie can be directed quite easily. And I think to their surprise, she shouts back unlike anything they probably expected, especially with Kurtz. She sees straight through him. I think pretty much after the first round of whatever he asks her to do, she realizes that it's all a bit of a scam, especially he is. She doesn't like his compliments, she doesn't like his praise. She finds it completely false. So I find that relationship incredibly interesting because he is the leader of it all, and he's got a leading lady who doesn't like him. She wasn't a superhero. She didn't know how to shoot guns. She didn't know how to roll out of a window and jump into a car, which Becker did. So for me, playing her, being this kind of well-dressed spy, it was great because I never had to be anything other than how she would be welcomed into this world. So she's not supposed to be fantastic at anything. She's just supposed to be really good at lying. And that was great. As I said, I got to learn how to shoot a gun with Charlie on camera. I got to learn how to fight a guy who was the size of a house with Charlie on camera. I wasn't supposed to be this slick spy like Alexander Skarsgård. Alex is that perfect kid in class that is really cool, funny, sexy, golden, and also can act at the same time. So anything you do, he'll do it like 100 times better, which makes our relationship in this quite perfect because Charlie finds Becker like really irritating on a certain level because she doesn't get him. She doesn't understand why this magical man is here with her and why he's choosing her and why he's so good at everything, which then me and Alex would find funny because that was essentially what would happen all the time. I'd be supposed to be, the sexy person on the beach, and then the camera would just pan to Alex, and Alex would just be like lying there 100 times better. Working with Alex was amazing. I've never quite worked with someone who was that specific and generous with his performance. He was always asking for my advice and asking to help me, and that's a really wonderful thing to come across, especially with such a big actor like himself and on such a big show. It was really lovely to share that with him. He's been an actor that I've always wanted to work with, and he's been on my screen since I was tiny, and I've been so intrigued by his face and his voice and his body language and his acting for so long, and so to actually be around him was like being next to some sort of god. I loved working with him. I mean, slightly intimidating, of course, because A, he's him, and also because Kurtz is quite intimidating, and Michael likes to stay in character quite a lot. But I will say that I learnt a heck of a lot from him, and continued to do so when we were drunk drinking and also working together. It was a really, really wicked, weird scenario to be in. I hadn't met him at all throughout the entire shoot. And then on the last week when we were in Prague, it was news that he was coming. And I was like, oh my God, we've done the series. What if he hates me? And everyone was like, no, he's seen Russia's, don't worry. And I was like, oh, thank God. And then we went to a dinner and I was sat next to him. And we got on like a house on fire. It was like old schoolmates. He's fascinating, and he's so there and with it, and all of his stories are just, your mouth is open because you're just gobsmacked that he's sat right next to you and he's telling you all these stories which, match so many of his books. He's an amazing man. The sets were unbelievable. The colours were just so exciting and vibrant, and something I'd never seen before. Nothing was stereotypical, nothing was cliche, and that's actually something that I'm really excited about watching. The burnt oranges and the blues and the pinks and just things that you wouldn't think should be that colour were. It was really, really exciting to watch and see whenever we would watch our stuff on the monitor, to just look at how much of a story there was behind us. And obviously sometimes that completely contrasts to the scene that we're doing, and that's why it was so cool. I mean, obviously a series that's set in 1979, everyone kind of like fist pumps because it's amazing hair, amazing beards, amazing body hair, and then amazing clothes. It's like the best of all of it. And I remember when I went in for my first meeting with costume, we obviously needed 3 different types of Charlies. We needed Charlie in London, we needed Charlie as the girlfriend, and we needed Charlie as in disguise. Usually when you read a script and you see something in the script that is magnificent, you go, that would be amazing, but that's not going to happen. And you always go, that's not going to happen. And then usually when the script edits come back, that's no longer happening, and you're actually doing it somewhere in London, or you're doing it, it's quite difficult to pull off big things like that. And I remember when I read that, I was like, God, that's going to be stunning, but I don't know if that's going to happen. And every time they do a new script revision, I'd go to that scene and have a look to see if they'd taken it out, and it was still there. And then finally, when we got to the last script revision, I was like, oh my God, we're actually going to be filming at the Acropolis. The weirdest thing about obviously like what we do is there are so many times when you're expected to just imagine something, because either they can't do it, or either they haven't got time to actually see you react to it, or you're supposed to just imagine that you know how big like a humongous bear would be coming to eat you with like 7 arms. So obviously you just kind of have a knack for it. But the best thing about this was that Director Park wanted to see our reactions to the Acropolis on camera as he introduced the audience to the Acropolis at the same time. And that was absolutely unbelievable. And it was such an amazing moment. And he basically just put the camera on, and we walked around the corner, and my mouth just fell open. And then we just pranced up the stairs, just me and Alex doing the scene. And it was utterly ridiculous. And it was unlike anything I've ever experienced. Even if I went there, I don't think it would ever be that brilliant. That's my favorite bit. There's that bit where I'm dancing and he bends down because it's shadow play, and his shadow is bigger than mine and mine's smaller, and our shadows are on the Acropolis, and we're just boogieing. One of those other magical moments where you just have to shoot it and see what happens. It's a very special moment. So yeah, well done, production team who got that. I knew Director Park was incredible. I knew that he's a visionary. But actually watching that go into practice with me at the center of a scene was unbelievable. And Whoosh is so silent and so quiet, and you'll never really notice him doing stuff. And then suddenly you'll just look around and realize that everything is lit and done perfectly. And he'll just tweak it and then go behind the camera again, and you're like, what just happened? How did you just do that wizardry in front of my eyes? And I had no idea. And I think that's the best way to put it. Their relationship and their vision for what they're making on screen is so, I think most importantly, it's different. Director Park, he does speak English, but Wonjo translates for him and is his exec producer on most of his things and is always there. It's his right-hand man. And Wonjo has everything that Director Park has in his head is there, and he knows everything that Director Park will want or how he wants it. And he's absolutely fantastic, and he works so hard, and there is not a moment that's lost in translation. So we'd be having this conversation right now, and he'd be talking over the top, and you'd get it within a second of when I said it. So I believe Wonjo is mad how hard he works, and he's super talented, and I don't think any of what we did on Little Drummer Girl would have been possible without him. So yeah, just as brilliant, but he doesn't like saying so I'm giving him this praise. I think that's the coolest thing about any films that you go on is you go and you walk into, it's like a time warp. You just go into a different era by going through a door. And that was, along with Director Park's eye and what he wanted and where he wanted it, it wasn't just like it was a cup on the table. It was like a specific cup from Poland from 1850 that they could only find in this little... It was bizarre. There was history to absolutely every piece everywhere. There's the famous teacup and saucer that I drink from when I say goodbye to Becker that I think Director Park bought only one of, and it's like the last remaining China tea set from, crazy. So everything has the most immense amount of history to it, and you wouldn't even know because you'd just walk past it and do the scene. So the thought and creativity and and work that must have gone into that is unbelievable. What I love about the book and what I love about what Director Park has done is actually ended in as good a place as it started. And what I hope that people will take from this is that in amongst all of that complicated history, and I know what we're doing isn't necessarily solving anything, but that there are two sides, I suppose. And I think that's something that has been highlighted really well in both adaptions, is that there's two sides and there's two loves and there's a lot of pain, and we've tried to scratch the surface, I suppose, and I hope people get it.